It's 11 a.m. Eastern Time. It's LinkedIn Live, Hour of Empower, with the keyword today being rich. So, with that, chat's open. Me and Leslie, who you know very well, Leslie Flowers, is gracing us with her experience and desire to help and serve as many people in the best way possible. So, chat's open. We rely on you to direct our conversation. We want to be as relevant as possible. So, if we can help as many people with what you want to know, that's where we want to be. uh, so, with that said, we covered the topic. We introduced our guest. We'll go right into Rich. Leslie can say hello, and then I'll take it right back, and we'll both talk about Rich. Go ahead, Leslie.
So, hello, everybody. Rich to me is, as I told Donald earlier, the first thing that came to mind was heavy whipping cream in a strong Italian coffee. That's rich.
Well, I think that's great, Leslie. And the reason why I think that's great, that's exactly where you are at the beginning of the show. Now, the key is to take that and expand it in different ways to have different valuable application. To me, rich is typically considered affluent, right? And it could be, well, it could be money, could be knowledge, whatever you're rich in, right? Whatever you have a lot of. I mean, some people collect dolls and they're rich, they're doll rich, and that's the way it is. So, anyways, let me just jump in because once we introduce people, we find more people want to get introduced. Hello, Baz is here. Thank you, Baz. I love your background. It really gets people's attention. Good morning to you. Kinga's here. Going to try and get Kinga on a show soon. Kinga's just great. I got a chance to talk to her on the phone, like about everybody else. Cindy's here. Hello, Don. Hello, Leslie. My songbird. See, wow, songs. That's not the topic, but it's a good. It's another talent Leslie has. Baz, hello, Baz. Cindy says, okay, everybody's saying hello. Great, nice to meet and greet. Getting back to Rich, and really, that's what we want to do here. Is not only dissect Rich in so many wonderful ways, but give everybody a chance to review their vocabulary, their words, how they apply them, maybe have more meanings. We talked yesterday about context, tone, when you deliver your words. Facial expression helps, energy. So all that goes into the word. Getting back to Rich, rich is, a lot of ways you can look at it as thick, and because like a stack of money is thick, a really, really rich cake is big, whether it's height or when you see a lot of frosting and good stuff on it. So, rich is like taking something above average, and making it richer, making the experience richer. What's your thought towards richer, richest?
Richard. I think that rich to me is it brings up wealth. So I begin thinking about other words, but most of all, it's based on our value system, our standards and our ideals and our values. So don't you think that it could mean have as many meanings as there are people? And then rich, how does it make you feel when you say it and you think about it? Is it a positive thing when you think rich? Is it something negative, right? Which would be a reflection of an old belief or nothing at all, right? So that's the next step into how the word resonates with you. Your thoughts, Donald?
Well, the reason I chose rich is because I know Leslie is heavily involved and infused in Think and Grow Rich from Napoleon Hill, which happens to be one of my really valued surprises. I won't get into too much detail, but I was in a bookstore, and it was a big bookstore, and there was this little cassette tape, and it said Think and Grow Rich. And I just thought the title was so cool, and it was so small, and I was at the counter, and I happened to pick it up and put it in my cassette player back then. You know, there was a time for a year and a half, every day to work and back, I played that two-piece cassette. I could mouth it, but just saying it and being with it, when I got to work, I was a whole different person. And when I got home from work, I was a whole different person. So rich to me was knowledge.
Mm.
You know, you can get rich with money, and in one day, for no reason or way that you had control of, it could disappear, and it does. Right? They say you can't take nothing with you. You know, you can't lose in life because you come in here, what's the worst you can do is break even. So when I look at rich, I look at what keeps you rich.
Mm.
Right? You can have short-term richness, go to a great place for a day and believe you're really part of it until you leave, and you go back to where you came from and who you are. But if you can take rich knowledge, and I think that's what this show is about,
Mm-hmm.
is now it opens up, because like I said, when we started with LinkedIn strategy, how many people really know that and care about it? But it's important. Small group, you know, and then once you learn it, what else do you want to know? Second thing is, when you get to empowerment, not everybody's looking to flex muscles or get active. That's just the way it is. But when you look at words, everybody uses them, everybody needs them, and everybody can do better by their choice and their direction with them. You know, it's multifaceted. So the Think and Grow Rich thing, to Leslie's point, you know, what did Napoleon think his definition was of rich?
Well, a couple of here's a fun fact. Since you brought it up, I don't want to forget though. Remind me, fun fact, okay, about Rich and Napoleon Hill. I didn't want to jump over something that you alluded to
Mm-hmm.
as you were going to work and listening to the cassette tape. This is exactly what I did for 2 years on CDs. Okay, so it was a few years later. And that is one of the principles of success, autosuggestion, which is how we learn. So, to your point about richness in learning, honestly, because learning is the miracle grow for human beings. Nothing lights us up more than learning. I mean, look at a toddler. Look at, young kids. As soon as they learn something new, oh, they do it over and over again. So to that point, the insight is that whether you are cognizant of it right now or not, you embedded and infused the principles of success into your belief system. And that's what helped you govern so fairly for so long. But let me jump over to what was I supposed to give you? And a funny thing about, unless you wanted to respond, go ahead.
Yeah, let's save that for the next go
But
around.
you'll have to remind me what it was.
The next thing. This
Okay.
would be like a commercial. See, we're having fun. You should have fun out there. If you're not laughing, start laughing. So, anyways, here's the key. Well, we got some people here. Let me just say hello.
But did you like that you see what you actually?
Oh yeah, the auto suggestion.
Yes.
The consistency
In spaced intervals over time.
Like any training, like weights, right? You got to do it every day to maintain what you're doing, build momentum, and then all of a sudden someone else's ideas become your ideas that you could have never got to on your own. You just borrow them, leverage them, to richness. How many times did you ever say, now that I learned this is going to save me so much time? Now that I learned this, I'm going to save so much money, right? It could be how I water the lawn or whatever I do. But you always think that the things you learn will continue to pay off for you instead of the things you acquire, right? You buy a car, that's what you got. It's not going to get bigger, smaller, change. You get knowledge and you get competitive advantage. when you know what you know to be true and someone thinks they know what is true, over time, you're going to get an advantage. But here's Varshi's. Uh, I believe you've been here before. Happy morning. Andre is here. Andre is doing great. Thanks for being here. Teresa McGee is a brand new name. Thank you for all the new people. We welcome you. And, one thing I want to throw out there is, what is your definition of rich? We've got all 30, 40 people right now on the show. I'd love to hear what rich is to you, or rich is what you're hoping to do. Cynthia's here. Everybody's saying hello. Let's try to get to something meatier. Baz says, happiness is the juice for life. The rich is appreciating the little things in life. That's rich. And everybody, I believe, wants to be richer, in one way or another. So I think it's universal. It's how do we achieve richness, and when do we decide we're there? How rich is rich, right? How long do you keep filling your tank up when it's overflowing? Same thing with richness. When you got enough, the key then is to pivot and start enjoying it. That's the reason you got it, right? You live all your life for a beautiful house. Well, live in it. You deserve it. Here's something. Okay, here we go. Having an abundance is something that is desirable. For some, that might be wealth. For others, it might be knowledge, health, family. It's completely individual and completely unique to you, and it's completely dynamic. Every day you can decide how rich you are. And what I found is
it all changes. Every time you learn something new, your perspective or your understanding of the word rich evolves also. So it's fluid, isn't it? And this guy is great. This is awesome, Danny.
That's right. And what it makes, I always felt you're always more humbled on the way down. On the way up, everybody's a hero. On the way down, you get so humbled if you have a lot of pride and self-respect, and you get humility. And what you find is the things later in life that you used to think were rich, and maybe they were, to Leslie's point. So you're never wrong, but you never have to stay where you're at if you don't think you're right, is to really find gratitude, right? So with that said, I'll finish with a couple comments. We'll get back to Leslie's second half of how it applies to the rich in Think and Grow Rich. Cindy says, I am rich with all the friends I met on LinkedIn. So true. Gratitude, appreciation, love what you got while you got it. Raquel says it perfectly, family, and Raquel is family. Hello and hello. Thank you so much. Your presence and your contribution is very valued and appreciated. Here we go with trying to get a comment. Oh, Danny comes back. Says, tell this to the Pope. That's like trying to floss. I don't know. Anyways, getting back to Leslie, what do you have to say?
May not be interested anymore.
What do you mean?
Well, you had asked me, what did Napoleon Hill think of rich? And I was going to tell you this kind of fun anecdote that most people don't know, which is about the title of the book. So when he first wrote it, there was another top title. It was a long extrapolated, which is kind of unusual for 100 years ago. And they published it and it didn't sell. So the story goes that they ripped the cover off, said Think and Grow Rich, didn't change anything inside. And today it's the #2 bestseller of all times, 100 million copies sold. And in it is the blueprint to be a millionaire if rich equates to money. And I saw someone say, as a tool, I absolutely 100% agree. So the question then becomes, if the blueprint for success is in that book and 100 million copies have been sold, why aren't there 100 million millionaires? Because the blueprint is there. So that's kind of always an interesting question, right? I mean, it's the #1 bestseller is the New Testament. Number two is Think and Grow Rich. And most all personal development greats, more of your age and my age, right? Their personal development programs are built out on the principles of success. So if you know Think and Grow Rich, you see it everywhere, right, Don?
Yeah, and you know, I think the other thing I'll say about it, because we're not here to sell books, and, and Napoleon Hill's been dead for a long time, so he won't know what's being said today. It's a very simple read, you know, from a standpoint, it doesn't take that long, you know, it's not that thick, you know. Now, I know you've got a different kind of book.
It is hard. It's 100 years ago. They used
Well, no, no.
25,000 words.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about the cassette tapes.
Oh,
So,
okay.
I mean, that's 2 hours, right? In 2 hours, I'm sure it doesn't get into the 25,000 pages,
No.
but there's other things that you could be doing along with knowledge opportunities like books. Now you have YouTube, you know, so there's so many rich treasures that people lived their whole life, worked their whole life, and that was the culmination of what they're known for.
Mhm.
It's never been more accessible. And that's where I would start to move, because when we started out with Rich, it was food, which was significant. And then I looked at it like money or like affluency, right? That's probably the second one.
Mhm.
Knowledge doesn't come up because it doesn't take anything to get it, except go to a library, take out a book, go to YouTube, choose a channel, right? So now it's redefining how you access rich advice, because you got to get the advice and the know-how before you can do the application. Leslie?
You may bring up a very good point, which I haven't looked at before.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the point. Because of all these different ways that we can learn,
Mm-hmm.
it might be wise to get an abridged version. So when I teach it, I teach the unabridged version. But to your point, it isn't necessary to get it all from one place, and everything doesn't resonate in the book to everybody. So it's even more important to hear these same concepts from other mouths, from other written works, and then there are certain ways that it's articulate that resonates with you. Not everything will. So this is really a truth bomb moment for me, because you reminded me of when I teach Covey's 7 Habits. I hadn't done it in a couple of years. And on the way to this was pre-COVID, it took an hour to get there in the car. I found the review of the 7 Habits, and I listened to it on the way. And it was exactly what I needed. It brought everything back, right? I hadn't taught it in a couple of years. So to your point, to tell people that are listening, it's okay to dabble in a topic or even a book. It may resonate with you more over YouTube with someone reading it rather than you're reading the book.
Well, absolutely. That's what this video, what we're doing, LinkedIn Live, is so important. When you ask, I mean, they have videos of Napoleon Hill actually live talking about it, right? How much better can you have than the person and the message? And here's the thing, to Leslie's point, no one's got time for unless, like I say, it's a minority of people that will take the time, read a book that thick, get to understand it. It's momentous. But anybody can look at 10 minutes of something and say on a video and say, hey, that's a good appetizer. I want a 30-minute portion.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can do it over time, because the idea is to do it and stay doing it in some way, shape, or form. You don't have to be voracious, you know, and you can enjoy it. You can think about it, take one part at a time, look at different people's perspectives. Leslie has a Friday class that just works on that. And I advocate checking it out if you have an interest in the book or spending more time with Leslie. And I think the other aspect of it is be the curator of what resonates with you, like Leslie says. So Napoleon Hill won't resonate with everybody.
Yeah.
He's old fashioned, and there's elements of that day and age which a lot of people may not relate to. Or you may want somebody that's more contemporary. So whatever. There's a lot of great people.
This is really a double-edged sword.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we have a sensory overload. We're bombarded with information, which has diminished our focus. Okay. So the biggest complaint people have when they come to me is I can't stay focused. And we want to be grateful that we have all this information. But as you said, Don, you want to curate it carefully. Right? Because as we jump around, there is no such thing as multitasking. You still have to get back in the groove, right? And that diminishes focus. So what I've done with Think and Grow Rich is studied it over 90 times, which is different than a read. But I really like the idea of harnessing and being grateful to be able to harness a dozen different ways to get the same information. So if one person doesn't resonate with you, another one will.
Well, and relating it back to Rich,
oh, yeah.
which we always got. That's a great thing to remember. With the compasses.
Right.
Let's go through a couple comments. We've got Teresa. I think we said hello.
Mm-hmm.
Kinga.
We don't want to give her a big head on her first day.
What we can care about the most and have the most of, that's a rich life. And, everything we're talking about applies to balance, right? If you're rich on something and then poor on something else, maybe you're better off moving it around a little bit, having an abundance.
We did this one.
Okay. Here we go. Let me get, okay. Here's Andrea, says money is nothing else but a tool. Rich is living in abundance, love, and connection to me. And what we're talking about doesn't make anything independent of each other. You can be rich in money, you can be rich in knowledge, you can be rich in health. The idea is to be rich so that you can enjoy your life. You can find happiness, right? Having a lot of money and having no time, being by yourself, to me, that's the poorest person in the world, right? Have an opportunity with nobody to share it with. Here we go. Rich, Teresa says, rich is inner peace and contentment for sure. Sheaf says, knowledge, wisdom keeps on growing, giving, and great for sharing. And we're 50, 100 people times our network, times each other, times ourselves. How much exchange, how much energy can you generate by being rich in being proactive, taking the first step, generating things, getting things out there versus just circulating? And most people don't even circulate. They go to their mailbox, get their mail, and they go back to TV. Anyways, Christine's here. Christine, my understanding of rage has totally changed. I lost a friend suddenly this week. I'm rich just to be here today. I don't need a beautiful home. Ancient Buddhists only needed a bowl and a spoon when they traveled, and some people even got rid of the spoon. You're so right, and that's what we were alluding to earlier. Until you realize what is important, when you almost lose it or you do lose something that you can't ever get back, that's where you need to focus first, because everything's foundational. To be rich, it has to be based on building on rock, not sand, building with trust, not faith alone, and it takes people helping people to get there. Just as a second, Leslie, I can't stop you. Go ahead.
One of the rich things about your show, here's the thing, it's kind of a hidden gem. It's like data mining. You know what data mining is in pharmaceuticals, right? They, aspirin was for an analgesic, and then they found out from the results that it's good for heart, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the things that happens with this show, I often go back when I haven't been able to stay the whole time, and I'll watch. I may not watch it all at once, but I may watch a segment. My favorite thing to do is read all of y'all's comments, because there are some truth bombs in what you're saying. Some of them are so simple and beautifully articulated, right? And I'll even say this is a quotable quote, like it's a universal truth, like music in a way. And Ashif is one of those people. I mean, there are many on here, but that's one of the hidden benefits to everybody doing what they're doing, which is really sharing their heart. And rich is going to be different from everybody. It's based on your standards and ideals and your values, and no two are the same. And it changes, as I said earlier, when you learn new information, you now have a new view. And that's what growth in awareness is, right? The same thing, your perspective grows every time you learn something new, which what I think is so great about that is there's really no point in being right or wrong about anything,
Well,
because you're not going to believe that for long.
well, not only that, but right or wrong again is a dynamic situation. You're right in a moment. In 2 minutes, you're wrong again. Forgot to turn the oven off. You name it. There's circumstances, and I think that's what we're trying to do and get to the show.
Mm-hmm.
Is that expression is primary to being rich. You've got to ask for things if you're ever going to get them. You've got to make things happen if you're ever going to get them. And here's another thing about rich. Because with more experience, I've seen how people get rich, and what they do is they make small deposits over time and they get rich one day, right? They start saving a little bit, investing a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and then they invest a little bit more, and it's gradual and they get comfortable. People want to get rich quick. It's a great idea, but very few people achieve it. So I would say, add to whatever it is that's important to you over time. If you're a collector, right? I remember early on when me and Ann used to travel, she'd have something. She was collecting camels. I was collecting elephants, and pretty soon everywhere we ended up with more elephants and camels, and then we didn't even know what to do with them. And we're buying the things just because it was a tradition versus needing anymore. But we were rich in both things, and it brought, like Leslie says, collateral benefit. Sometimes rich is the cream, is the gravy. That's where the richness comes. How many people say, boy, that's a rich gravy, or that's a rich chocolate? It's really distinctive at that point, right? And I think that's where people want to do, is get the distinctive in their life.
Yes, it's not common.
Yeah, that's correct. And I'm saying is by, I know you go into some people's houses when I was growing up, like relatives, and their whole big thing was their table. They had the lace and the linen and the china and the silver, and you couldn't touch anything for like 2 hours before someone came. And to them, that was richness, their table, because they put value in family, get-togethers, conversations. And in a sense, we're trying to build a rich environment here, where it's like going over to a big family affair where people really pay attention to people, really happy to see each other, know everybody's doing okay. And I think when you break it to words, you don't need a skill set, right? You just have to have an emotional feeling towards something in people. And it's how rich can you be in expressing things of richness to you, to others, to make them richer. And how do we make ourselves richer together? Go right ahead, Leslie.
Well, you're setting me up.
Okay.
Everybody, that's what he's doing on purpose. He makes a joke of it. Now, the words, going back to why we pick words that make us feel good: kindness, gratitude, thank you, offering, sacrifice, generosity, all those values. Values have been around since man has been around in community. And the reason that people love to follow values and virtues is because it feels good. Well, a little deeper in the conversation, many of you know that how you feel, right, feeling good, is a cellular activity, and that you will attract to you people that feel similarly. We have a lot of negativity, but it takes something to be intentional about these words, and that these words all are very powerful. For me, they're very positive. I don't see anything negative. If I do anything negative, I'll flip it over to positive. So everything you're saying is true. And I saw something on Instagram, and I rarely get on there because I don't really know how it works too well. But there was a very much older woman saying, our bodies, and she's very famous, I can't think of her name, our bodies were meant to heal. They're perfect, right? So the vibration is the vibration of love. Love, kindness. When you think of that, you can get chill bumps on your arms. That is how you heal yourself. But the reverse is also true. If you focus on the negative, you will throw your body into dis-ease and you will make yourself sick. So you may not understand exactly how that works yet, but I can tell you there's a lot of truth in this. So that these words, Donald, you're really onto something gold. Really, it's like 1849 in the gold rush days.
Well, when you say gold, people think of rich too.
There
So
we go.
you tied it in at the very end because I was waiting with bated breath to say, where is the rich word showing up? And, okay, Danny says, the eighth habit, now we're talking about the 7 habits, right? Because some,
Which is Covey. Yeah.
okay, was implied in 7 habits, but few made the connection about teamwork and network. So Covey had to write the follow-up specifically to highlight the importance of others and teaming. Okay.
And keep in mind, Covey's stuff is seeping with the principles of success because I've taught them both, right? So what you're talking about, Danny, what jumps up for me is mastermind. It's one of the principles of success because Covey was in the last 100 years. And if you look, Mark Victor Hansen, Jack Canfield, Bob Proctor, all of those multimillionaire personal development people planted their programs with the seeds of the principles of success. You can do it too.
And I'm sure that Covey was influenced by Napoleon Hill, just like
Absolutely.
everybody else. So in a lot of ways, it's a distillation,
Yes.
right? Where you had that as a foundation or as an influence, then someone took modernizing it, making it a little more contemporary, but also putting their twist on it. And then the third generation is showing up today, like the Brene Browns and, all these different people who are riding on the shoulders of the people who came before them. And you get it from the horse's mouth in a matter of where people have access today. A lot of people couldn't get Think and Grow Rich because there weren't libraries in some places. People didn't have bookstores or money. No excuse. Now it's about.
There's nothing new about it. All that information has been around. It just, Napoleon Hill brought it all together after 20 years of interviewing our most successful, that he did 10,000 people, but it was 500 that he followed consistently, right? And the goal was wealth, health, and happiness every day. So not rich and sick, right? How do you develop and maintain a mindset of wealth, health, and happiness as a daily occurrence, not a goal? And I will tell you, I had no clue when I started with this book. I already had plenty of years of doing other things and studying different disciplines. it has kept me in that kind of mindset. I can manage myself much better now after studying so deeply. But I don't say people should start this now. Wait till you're old like me before you start doing something like that.
Well, anyways, getting back to our people here, Kim says, "Happy Saturday! Thanks for being here. We're so thankful for all you to be here today. Also, that's so true about other people's truth bomb. None of us is as smart as all of us. You don't have to be if you have all of us. You have you and us. It's not you
Right.
or us, and I think that's so key." Ashif says, "Oh, I learned lots. However, my wealth is accumulated with resonating takeaways, focus. Richness is really better appreciated when it continues, when it isn't a final destination, where you have more knowledge, you have more resources, you have books and tapes and videos you can go to inspire you like people never before. Human currencies, what's in it? Feelings, time, money, and gold is over 1,000. It's almost 2,000
Oh
actually.
my God.
Lillian says, "Good evening, everyone from Romania. I wish you a happy Saturday." Lillian's just the greatest. She's spent most of her career as a preschool teacher and kindergarten teacher. So welcome. I advocate everybody make connections with the people here today. Build your network. And if you got connections, set up conversations. Share what you know with other people and you'll get more by the share. When two circles combine, each circle gets bigger. So with that said, Leslie, we covered almost a little bit over half the show. We covered rich. And what I like about a word, what's funny is no one knows anything until they start learning something. And when we started the word, it was just a word, right? And people wanted then to choose a word because they felt they liked the word, or they had something going with the word that they could really share. And I'm looking at it like you almost get a word that you've never even thought of in a while, and then use that word to share what you know and can respond around that word. So
Well, you picked humble for me a week or so ago, and that is not an area that I've stepped into deeply. I know what it is, I can talk about it, but it would not have been my choice. And
no,
so I think it's actually better when it's not. Like when you pick goals, everybody knows that I'm a goal achiever. And, so that's not a good word for me because I could talk from now until forever. But this is better because I get to talk about different ways rich is. And there's also a pan of warm brownies loaded with huge walnuts cooling on my stove. Now that's rich.
well, and that's why, it relates, when you're growing up or you're around people and someone makes something new to eat that you never had, and your first reaction is, "Oh, I don't care for it." And it's like, just give it a try. Let me put some on your plate. And, it's really embracing the things you're not that aware of or connected to give you balance, or things that you thought of in a not the best way that now you realize, hey, there's a use for this. I mean, my businesses initially were all based on selling tools and equipment, right? So I understood the value of a tool and a specific application, that certain tools you just needed if you wanted to get the job done. And you might need them once in a blue moon, but you were happy to have it when you needed it. And by understanding things you don't quite embrace, it does give you a little bit more width, right? More bandwidth, that I've got a bigger vocabulary. And if I ever have to use this word, I'm more acquainted with it. So with that, let's go to, let me see if there's another comment. Good evening. No, we covered that. So Leslie, I like how, if you look at this, while we're challenging ourselves to be spontaneous and responsive in the moment, right? Because we're answering pretty fast after we read them. We're not coming back to it after we thought about it, right? Is it really stretches us and hopefully stretches the people in the audience, because that's what you want to do to get richer, is to get stronger. And I think when you think about rich, it's strength. How good is the economy? Well, the Fed says it's doing great. Well, then we're all rich then, right? What do we got in the refrigerator? Is a good, well, we got to go shopping, right? And then sometimes you got so much in there, it's like, I'm super rich. I remember my mother used to use, I got her a microwave, she used it as a bread basket. She wouldn't want to go to the class, and she just put potato chips. Well, she lived in Florida, so you had to protect a lot of stuff. But she was always, if she would have got a bigger nothing was big enough when it came to refrigerators. But anyways, it's the same thing in your life, is how rich can you be? How rich do you want to be? And the truth is, you can be. The result is already, it's someone's going to get the prize. I mean, and you know what the beauty of it is? It's not like a finite element. If you're using
relative,
it's inside of you is where the treasure is. It's what you can do. Borrowing doesn't get you ownership. Earning builds ownership and equity. And here's the thing. If everybody can get rich, and everybody can, more people could if they actually went out there and gave it their best, is how do you change? Because, Andrew Carnegie, and I'll mention him really quickly, he was the source for Napoleon Hill. Mm-hmm. And he was a guy who came in steerage, a young man from UK or Ireland or wherever he came from, Scotland, okay? Yeah. Came here with nothing, went to work in the steel plants, and became the richest man in the world. And that's who commissioned Napoleon Hill for no money to do this through introductions to famous people. But when Andrew Carnegie died, they opened up his desk and they found a note that said, the first part of my life, I will make a fortune. The next half, I'll give it away. Oh. And he created a Carnegie library system, that was instrumental in bringing people up to date and literate. So, if you look at someone who, we talk about Stephen Covey and we talk about people today and then people before, everybody was a source for somebody. Mm-hmm. Everybody was an inspiration, an opportunity. Around you, you have live people in the moment who are searching, who want to do better, who want to feel better. Everybody here is to get richer in one way, shape, or another. And because of that, no one's on the same track against each other, right?
That reminds me of something.
Yeah, please.
Did I tell you the story about Alcatraz? Yeah, your point, and not everybody was here, but to your point about make that point again, Donald, because I want to bring in that phenomenon that you brought up, a real world example. So make that point again, please.
What point was that?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
No, it was that there's no conflict. There's room.
Well, never is there no conflict. It's a requirement. If you want to get there faster, you need to borrow along the way. Well, to get more gas in the car to keep it going. You need to get more ideas, more of that. And here's the thing, and I talked about that earlier in other shows. If you got 90%, all you need is 10 to get complete. And if someone's got 90% need and you can supply it, everybody gets to where they're going faster, and everybody had it to give. Right? If someone comes to your house and says, I need a cup of sugar, and you're sitting there with pounds of it, you're pleased to be able to help somebody with so little that you have so much of. And I think people who don't knock on doors are afraid that those doors won't be opened, or they'll be shut as soon as they're opened. And you'd be surprised how many people are looking at that door from the inside hoping someone knocks. Right? And you know what? All you need is one. So knock on 20.
It's a game of
You'll get
numbers.
good at knocking. You'll get good at rejection if that's a thing, and you'll come back and start thinking more. And you know what you might think is what you're asking for wasn't the right thing, but knocking was. And then you change how you ask, what you ask, who you ask, and it becomes a journey. I mean, Napoleon Hill spent his life. Carnegie spent his life on his journey. They succeeded. Their legacy, their names are still being talked about. And I think that justifies and proves what they said is universal and timeless, because how many records came out 20 years ago that nobody would even play again, or books that were published in the last year that nobody would read again or refer, and books that are hundreds of years old, because they have value, not because they're just good books. So anyways, let's cover, not that many. Okay, we got one. I guess, I either think when people aren't commenting, they're so involved in listening, they don't want to take time away.
Well, tell us, are you bored?
No,
Is that why? Oh,
no.
well, I mean, tell the truth. Do you like this?
We're doing good, Leslie. Don't hurt.
Okay.
No, we're actually doing really well as far as I check the numbers every so often.
Okay.
So people are hanging with us. But
one of the things that you mentioned about, the 90%, which you have mentioned many times before, which I love, is, and one of the phenomenons that I experience in my work with people setting and achieving goals is that people, if they get to the date that they said they want to achieve the goal and they're at 90%, they don't always see that as a success. And as you pointed out, you're already 90% there. Another week or two is going to give you 100%. But why do we do that? Why do we see that we didn't hit the date exactly when we said it would, regardless of the percentage of completion, that we were wrong or we did not succeed? When in actual fact, the process is, you got this far, yay, it's going to be a hop, skip, and a jump to complete it. So why are we so quick to chastise ourselves when we don't do it exactly the way we thought it ought to be? Why don't we give ourselves some grace?
Well, that's a good question. And here's a couple answers. One is, a lot of people are looking for reasons to quit things that they were never truly into. So if the time just expired, well, I timed out, right? I did it, couldn't get it in time, I lost. But time doesn't ever stop. You stop time. You decide on this day, on this hour, I'm done. I'm not going there. And that's your decision. But the point is, you can't blame it on the time, because if you really cared, you asked for more time. You'd find time. If somebody said you had one more, can I have another day to turn in my paper? Right? I wouldn't just accept the termination time. I would just ask for a little bit of understanding and support. And
isn't it all about how you manage your tasks and your values and your time? Because time is consumable and it does not tolerate your hesitating. So it's really important that once you know what it is you want and you're very clear on it, and this jumps back a little bit to Think and Grow Rich, it's really, really important to only focus on and take on new things time-wise that would eat up your time, that take you toward the end product you happen to be working on.
Here's another thing. Too many people think about what they're doing instead of thinking about what they're thinking, and I look at every day as a new day to make, every day you decide what you're going to wear, right? You got a decision. You might wear the same thing as yesterday. Maybe you got everything that you wear is the same thing as yesterday, just cleaner, right? Every day. And food is the same thing, right? You got a main dish. Usually you got a little side dish. You got something during the day. You got a snack. You choose all that, right? When you decide this is my time to be whatever you are, professional, academic, when you're actually applying yourself where there's a challenge in front of you, you can move things around and say, okay, listen, take this to bed for a day. I'm not going to bother with that. I did enough. I'll come back to it. It's knowing how to work what you have instead of you being the thing you have. Because if you're the hub and everything is a spoke, you choose, okay, there's books you put down, don't read ever. But then there's the same ones you come back in 2 months. There's programs I watch sometimes. It's like, I had enough of this. I know where it's going. Maybe I never come back to it. Maybe I'm still curious. But that's the curiosity of being rich. And I'll tell you one thing about rich. So many people think it's money who have never had any money, right? They think something that they don't have is the thing they need, right? And it's an easy way to say it because things like money buy stuff. So you can beautify everything around you if you have enough money, but it doesn't change you. If anything, like I always say, money makes good people better and bad people worse. It just creates more opportunities. And if you never time out because of your limitations, it's one thing if a professor says by Tuesday, you got to get the paper in. If you say yourself by Tuesday, you got to get the paper in, and there was no reason it couldn't have been Wednesday or Thursday, what are we even dealing with arbitrary elements when all that time and attention should be to the mission at hand? And you can re-examine that and say, yeah, it doesn't serve me honestly. But I'll tell you another thing, and people call it sour grapes. When something you really like or appreciate turns out not to like you or appreciate you, or you find something out, all of a sudden the whole thing doesn't make sense anymore. So that gives you the right to follow what is in the moment, what is spontaneous. Where is everybody today? Because if you're yesterday and they're tomorrow, there's no way you guys are going to get together. But if you're like, hey, I can clean my slate in a minute if something shows up, if it's important, if it's valuable. I mean, how many times would you jump in your car under the right circumstances and go somewhere? And all of a sudden your schedule is like the last thing on your mind. And I think that's what you got to think of. The last thing on your mind should be the first thing you start doing, right? And acting on. So Petra's here. Petra also goes by Ashley's, and she's formed Ashley's Angels. Great lady. Again, Dennis is here. Dennis is our rhymer. We're not.
He is our resident comedian.
Yeah, he's the national poet here.
That's right.
Cool how we use it depends on us. Love for others. Hearts matter. This has been a fabulous conversation because what makes it worthwhile is making it interesting for everybody. When everybody knows what's coming, when everybody's prepared to say something, they don't get the benefit out of it so much. And it's like, hey, at the end of the show, is everybody happier than you came here? Is everybody a little smarter? Does someone know about Napoleon Hill or Andrew Carnegie or Stephen Covey? Is anybody getting their books now from Amazon or Audible? Add to your library. If someone told me who was really smart, is that you can tell who someone is when you ask them, what do they read? Right? And that'll tell you who they are. Doesn't mean you got to judge them, but if they're reading comic books and you're reading Stephen Covey and there's no judgment, you're going to have a harder conversation in other areas, to a certain extent. So, birds of a feather flock together, is another one. And, you get rich through numbers. If you're with a bigger community, a safer community, their richness allows you access to their richness under the right conditions. And what you want to do is have access. Go ahead, Leslie. You almost got a word out.
With Donald and I, it's hard. But here's what I want to, something else that you said, because there's a lot in what you say that is under the surface. So as regards to one of your points you made toward maybe halfway point, And it's about continuous learning, and it's about being happy, healthy, and wealthy every day. When people, as you learn and you earn, you learn to solve those challenges so that you can actually enjoy the level you're at. And then you're earning more and you're learning more. Now I have more money, I have six figures, and I have more obstacles and challenges, but I'm learning along the way. And then we get to the higher levels, and we are then a match vibrationally to managing that much money so you can enjoy it. Now, people who win the lottery end up worse off in most cases than ever before because they have not done any of the learning. They're faced with all this cash and they have no clue. They sure as heck don't have a good time. People are coming out of the woodwork wanting that money. Oh, my hands are, anyway, you can't see that. But the idea is that if you continue learning as you grow your business, you will always stay a match vibrationally to how much money you have. Learn how to deal with that, enjoy the money, to Donald's point. Learn more, make more money. And so it's a climb, but it is the learning that is what allows you expanded awareness, that allows you to actually be present, to enjoy what you've worked so hard to achieve.
So well said. And one thing I'd like to add to that is,
Please.
early on, I had some really wonderful teachers from different types of people. They weren't Napoleon Hill. Some people never got past high school. But the person who really impressed what rich was explained it as having $1 more than you can spend. So once you have $1 more than you can spend, you've got everything you need. Now, would 10 more dollars make a difference? No, or a million. Once you got more than you could spend, you're a rich person. The key to it, I believe, is being a minimalist when it comes to material things and be a maximist when it comes to relationships, learning. Those are the satisfying things. Money gives you some security, if that. If anything, I was partners with a guy who would be considered a billionaire today. And he told me, and I understood it, you don't know how much responsibility having so much money takes. Between lawyers, accountants, I mean, you're dealing with all this stuff and inheritance and trust funds, and it was never ending. A normal everyday person never has to deal with this, and they say I'd love to, but to Leslie's point, sudden change doesn't work for either side. If you're rich and you get taken down to the bottom overnight, that's a hard fall. And if you've never been anywhere and all of a sudden someone takes you to the top and you never got a chance to climb the stairs and look at the floor between, now not only did you get big, you got distant because all those people you used to hang out with, they're not going to go to that top floor, and you may not go to where they are, and all of a sudden you lost your clan, your group. And eventually what happens is the money just flies out and they go back to where they came from. And all they did was an elevator up and down. Go ahead.
Well, one of the things I wanted to bring up it could have a slightly non-positive tone, but one of the challenges I'll be careful. I'll be careful. You'll have to trust me.
We work too hard for this crescendo.
No. So now listen. So one of the challenges that I've had is not understanding really what money is. Now, look, it is not the love of money that we're talking about because, right, that is not the concept here. We need money as tender. If we want to take a family on a trip who has a dying member, it takes money. So several people said this: disassociate yourself from anything negative about money, it's actually has no vibration, right? I mean, really, it doesn't have to. It's a useful tool to accomplish the services that we would like to provide. You've got to have it. So, your relationship with money, you could look at your relationship with people. And sometimes our relationship with money, example, you always leave me high and dry. I've done all the work. I should be having this much money by now. In a conference 10 years ago, I confronted something about myself, and maybe you have too. So we were doing a back and forth, and we were to tell off money, how it's disappointed us, how we should have more. And then I had the epiphany. I relate to my ex husband exactly the same way. It was astounding at that time to realize that I was in a relationship with my relationship with money and finances was like my relationship with my husband. No, we were exes at that time. But the idea is that we want to detach from anything emotional. Okay, I'm done. He's scratching his head, but fixing his head.
No, I was just figuring when we're going to get back to Rich, but anyway.
Rich.
Well, here. What I'd like to say in response to that,
Please.
which I almost just forgot, it is that when you look at money and you look at relationships, in a sense, it's the feedback you get from your relationships that tell you how rich you are, right?
Mm.
So if people say, hey, Dad, that's just great, you're doing terrific, hey, that's enough for me. But if someone says, hey, what I learned early with kids that it had to do with money is I always taught them nobody rides for free in this world, And early on, when you're a parent, you don't know what being a parent is until you actually start doing it. And they'd want things and ask for things. And I always said, we can't afford that, or that's not worth it. And then I thought to myself, well, what am I saying? We don't have enough money. I can't buy it. I said, no, I got to tell you something. I had it all wrong. It's not what we have. It's what you deserve is what you're going to get, right? So I can pay for anything if it's deserving. To your earlier point, when you say you need money, and especially if it's a situation, someone's sick, needs an operation, I mean, it's significant. Well, that would get me going and saying, I'll get that money for that. But if someone says, hey, you want to make another 20 grand? Oh, travel here, do this and knock yourself out. It's not that. But the purpose would drive me to make that money, right? Because I would get out of my comfort zone. And that's what I'm trying to share.
It was your values. It was your unique standards and ideals that motivated you, inspired you in this particular instance. And you got to have that motivation, right?
Well, you got to have that belief that you will get it done. And I've known in my past that something came up with a real time zone, a timeline, where in business, a lot of times, if you're dealing with investors, you get a drop dead date. And that's the date something you're going to be gone, right? If this doesn't happen by this time, it's done. And you know that. And every time, there was 2 times it happened. Within a week, I got everything I needed from people I didn't even know that day I started in the week. But you make connections, you make relationships, and if you're worthy, if it's deserving, there are people who will be with you. I had this one gentleman who I met on a Thursday, and by the following Tuesday, we had done something together. And it only came down to him flipping me a yellow legal pad with a pen, said, write down everything you need. It's going to be yes or no. And he said yes. And I asked him why. And he said, first of all, I can afford to do anything. And he could. So his giving wasn't as significant as my getting. But he did say, I've been taken advantage of, and I've taken advantage of people. And I'm going to be on your side. And you see, it's those people that make you rich, because those are doors you know will be opened if you knock properly. And you're deserving.
Yeah, well, now this goes right back to the universe, because what you want is already moving toward you. If you have a definite purpose, getting back to Think and Grow Rich, and you have fallen in love with that purpose, regardless of the reason, which is desire, you have a very high vibration. What happens is what you want is moving toward you at the same velocity or amplitude of cellular vibration that you are moving toward it. And how do you know? Because they show up in people and opportunities that take you directly to your goal. Those are synchronicities. There's no such thing as a coincidence. You just don't know yet how it works, but your cause in the matter of your life, you source it. The universe is our partner, and we communicate by vibration, getting right back to these words because they feel good. We are supposed to feel good, and we can heal ourselves, but we are sometimes our own worst enemy because we listen and we allow in a lot of negativity. And that's why you've got people coming here every day. We need a dose of love, which is the highest vibration a human can have. And that's what this is all about. Nobody's here to make money, right? We're not here for that. We're here to learn from one another. Now, you have a benefit with Donald and I because we're at the tail end of our lives. So much of what we talk about, where we've arrived, it took a whole lifetime. So when you hear us speak about how we manage boundaries and all of that, it isn't that we didn't have a hell of a lot of practice, decades of it. And you will too. So you can look forward to being just like me and Donald when you get old.
Well, I don't know.
Gotcha.
I don't think I'm going to get any older.
Okay.
So, my sense of your sense, especially as relates to a daily dose, I even put in one of my headlines, daily slice of this, where, you get a bowl of cereal every morning. You don't take the whole box, right? You eat 2 eggs. You don't eat a dozen, right? You eat what you're comfortable with, what you enjoy. The third hamburger never tastes as good as the first, and that's the good thing of an hour of this, because you got 23 hours to blend it, mix it, and decide if you want to add to your formulation. It's just like Thomas Edison, and he's part of the Think and Grow Rich thing. His famous quote is, it took me 10,000 experiments to invent a light bulb, and what I learned is 9,999 ways not to. And if you look at either you learn or you earn, right? You grow fast or you take your time, but you keep moving forward.
Absolutely.
And to me, you have to be so protective of your health. And, this is 300 and some days in a row of LinkedIn Live, 1,000 days in a row of posting, right? If it wasn't comfortable, I wouldn't do it, and I couldn't do it.
Well, you must be self-actualized according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Because you're doing this actually benefits you every bit as much as everybody else. And that's what 15 years.
This is brain exercise. The reason I came back strong on LinkedIn is for relevancy, is to stay connected. You know, if it wasn't for my grandkids, I wouldn't even know what 10 and 12-year-old kids do these days. I mean, they give me the clear picture. If I wasn't with everybody here internationally, locally, who are here to be better, help people be better. And when you say you're not, this isn't to make money, it's to put you in a position where you can go and make money from here. Because the key to making money is keeping it and advancing it. There's some people that can hit a flash in the pan, win a lottery, get lucky with who knows what, but can they repeat it? You know, and that's the key to success. Is it duplicatable? And what I just shared with a couple of my experiences, your value is your relationship and the people. And if you can keep layering on, pleasing people in a sincere, authentic way that serves both parties and is not manipulative or have ulterior motives, you're going to distinguish yourself again, like we just said. You're going to be rich for someone else, even if you might not be rich enough for yourself, right? Your association, your friendship, your relationship creates so much value in the people around you. And just think what an empty chair would look like around your family and how rich that chair is, you know? And that's what I always come down to. And actually, that's how I've been so successful. I always put family first, always. They traveled everywhere I could take them. I mean, my kids were traveling every 4 weeks for their whole childhood, you know, because I enjoyed that. And it also gave them a chance. You know, when you're with people, they're with you. And when you're not with them, they're not with you. So it's a double kind of whammy to it. And those are the people, when you hit the skids, they're the ones that you want around you, you know? So that's where I think when you look at richness, I think pride has to take a place there. You know, if you're really proud of whatever it is you're proud of, you're rich in that area. And especially if you're proud of yourself. It's one thing for people to pat you on the back and you wonder like, hey, cool, but you know, wonder. We're a little bit over, but it is Saturday. Luxury does not mean blissfulness, but once we are blissful with ourselves, we will be joyful. You know, how many times were you so happy and something happened, you got so sad? How many times were you so sad and something happened, you became so happy? Right? You got some news either way that turns your mind around. Someone just graduated, someone got engaged, someone's having a baby, blah, 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 blah. You know, that's really cool. But you know what you got to hope for in your darkest times is that news is upcoming. When it shows up, how it shows up, it is upcoming. It's patience that has a lot to do with being rich. If you're rich in patience, tolerance, okay, forgiveness, you know, even forgetfulness on certain situations, that makes you richer. And you know what you can do is you add your different piles of wealth. Well, I'm going to add to my relationship richness today. I'm going to read a book. I'm going to add to that. And if you had 10, you know, departments and start flipping investments in all of those, you know, you don't have to see your money to know where it is. You know, you don't have to have it in your hand to know you have it. It's the same thing with richness. And, you know, richness on the way is even better than what you have today. You know, if someone says the check's in the mail and you know it, you already feel the money's in the bank. You start thinking like, hey, I'm going to get 10 grand next week or whatever. You don't have it yet, but you know it's going to come. And here's the thing. Does someone have to tell you the check's in the mail? Does someone have to say they just wrote the check? You can visualize that check. You know, who was it? Steve Martin. No, it was actually Jim Carrey, living in a car, homeless for a year or two. You know, they say these people, overnight successes, took them 20 years to get there. He wrote himself a check for $10 million and dated it like 15 years in advance. And he did eventually sign a movie. It was one of those early movies for $10 million. Now, to Leslie's point, I don't believe in coincidences either. If he would have wrote the check for 5, I probably would have thought he would have got 5, maybe 15, who knows? But once you plant that as it's on its way, you know, then it truly is in your heart. Go ahead, Leslie.
I've got a story. This has to do with how much you want it and why you want it. When I already had 10 years in leadership and had retired from 45 years in corporate America, The Secret came out in 2006 or 2007, and I started a meetup group. And every month we'd meet and we'd talk about it, and I loved it, loved it, loved it. This was in 2007. And through a series of intuitive moves, I loved having this meetup. I loved talking about all these practitioners. And I got an errant email with a link in it. And this is in '07. Like, don't open that, right? And you're not supposed to now, but even back then, that was a big thing. But my intuition, which is conscious, it's the connection to the universe, said, go ahead. And I'd been asking, wow, I'd really love to do this work. It's so good. It energized me. I led the group. We had fairs and all sorts of things. So I followed the link and I arrived at Bob Proctor's site. Now, I didn't know who he was, except that he was the grandfatherly guy in The Secret. By the end of the conversation, they said, okay, you'll come down here to West Palm Beach in March. We will certify you with 500 other people. We will send you a mastermind guide. You will start a mastermind before you get here, teaching Think and Grow Rich. And I said, what the hell is Think and Grow Rich? And what is a mastermind? Don't worry, we'll send it to you. Well, I knew this was it. Everything had led me to this. I was already in personal development. This was so exciting to me. So then the big question, how much? She said $16,000 in 2007. I had $500 in my Edward Jones account. That was it. And I said, I will be there in March. This was in November. It did not matter to me that I did not have the money. I knew I was going. I had complete faith. There was nothing else I was going to do. I didn't even think about the money anymore because I knew I was going. And 3 months later, there was a $20,000 windfall, of which I had no clue. It was from some errant stock that got sold. So what you want is moving toward you at the same amplitude of vibration. When you desire something and you're in love with something, that's the highest vibration. To Donald's point, and to people writing checks, it is exciting. It raises your vibration and it sends a message to the universe. And the universe has 7 laws that work all the time, that this is the direction I'm headed. And so when these people show up and when this money shows up, you actually sourced it. You didn't even know it. You don't even know how powerful you are. You have no clue that this actually works. So, boy, this has been fun. I can smell the brownies, and they're saying, Leslie, you need to come in.
Can't get them out for the rest of us now that you
Does anybody know I'm inviting everybody over for a cup of coffee and a brownie right now?
Okay, well, you got 10 minutes to get there, or the brownies will be done. So, anyways, with that, I want to thank Leslie so much. I want to thank the audience. I think it's a great show because no one knows until the show unfolds, and then who's in the audience, where we go, what we say. So, really, the word is only important to get the ball out in the field and get people to start kicking it wherever it needs to go. And, hopefully it just shows our intent to make this a better show, to be very disciplined in how we support you, how you support yourself and other people, because we can make this much bigger, much better by building stronger communities where people do start using this maybe as practice to take action here that will maybe give them confidence to take action with themselves or there. So, things you start to have lives of their own, start to spread in different ways. And, I think the beauty of life and happiness is optimism to the future, right? If you can create an optimistic future where tomorrow, if every day was your birthday and presents were waiting for you, wouldn't that be just the thing to get you to jump out of bed?
Speaking of optimism and a brilliant future, my ninth book is getting ready to be published. It's the first fiction, and it's called The Possibility of Errata. And it's all about how we can live into the possibility of peace and love. And it's time for this. And I've got a whole team and I'm pretty excited about it. So, it's going to take a little bit of time, but my goal is to have it as a 13-part series on one of the streaming networks. That's where I'm headed.
Well, good
Because
for you, Leslie.
it's a
That's very ambitious, and
Yeah.
hopefully it just becomes the wave you can ride for a while and help so many other people.
Yeah.
With that, we got to lock it up. Got to get ready. 22 and a half hours our next show. Tomorrow we're graced with Sarah Dawkins and a new guest that just has an unbelievable background. Her name is Samaya, and she's everything. I mean, she's been in 47 countries and everything else. Wonderful lady. Tune in. It'd be delightful. And actually, Leslie's coming back on Tuesday with Rita, which will be great. The subject will be confidence. Monday is Gretchen. Wednesday is Rita and Deb Curtis. Thursday is Kelly and Brett again and myself, and it just keeps going and going. So with that said, make it a rich day, build a rich life, and we'll be back here tomorrow. Thank you so much.